Happy first Friday of November. It's not Friday at all. I don't know if you can tell by my voice, but I have been exhausted and miserable the last few days because I have been sick, which you will hear more about how that happened later in the video. I had to stop editing because my energy levels were way too low to keep up with my usual video release schedule, and even though it doesn't change much of your viewing experience, I just wanted to give you that heads up and also say sorry for the delayed video, as well as thank you so much for your patience. Now that Halloween is over and I can no longer receive serotonin from the whole world vibing with an ever so slightly spookier tone, the seasonal affective disorder, or the big sad, has crept up on us all. In order to combat the unga bunga no sun no serotonin in my brain holes, to ease the amount of creative juices required to make some art, a redraw would be in order. I haven't done a redraw in well over a month, and if you're new to the channel, I have been slowly chipping away at redrawing the characters on the back of this huge map that I made in my childhood that was full of lore, characters, adventures, all sorts of good stuff. And now, being equipped with more storytelling and artistic skills, anywhere from 10 to 15 years later, I am going to do my childhood self some justice. And what better way to do a redraw and also combat the big sad than to draw a hot pirate lady? Now, of course, the first thing to do is create an appropriate file name, and the next thing to do is to take your time and sketch out a nice body. I gave her big swinging hips and a powerful stance because I'm a simple woman who likes simple things, and it would be an honor to get kicked out of a seaside tavern by this lady. I keep calling her this lady when she does have a name, and she is so respectable and powerful, so she deserves to be called by her name, Kaida. Not to disappoint anyone, but she actually isn't actively a pirate. I don't exactly remember her backstory, so she might have had a few years on the sea, but for the time being, she runs a very popular restaurant, tavern type place that was built out of the base of a lighthouse. I'm also pretty sure that the lighthouse is still operational and it belongs to Kaida, so she is also possibly a lighthouse keeper. Even if the responsibility is shared with others, you know she is not a person to be trifled with because being a lighthouse keeper is an intense job. So I didn't want to deviate anything too crazy from the original drawing because of course this is a redraw, but I did add a few of my own details. The things I transferred from the original drawing were the big ring on her thumb because that's very important to her backstory, the fact that she has long reddish orange hair, big hoop earrings, the leather corset, and lastly, the purple sash across her hips, because I do want to respect my childhood self's artistic preferences in this case. Oh yeah, and here's where I forgot to start recording again. Kaida's drawing, I think, was a little later down the line as far as my map goes. To detective this out, this couldn't have been too far past my anime manga drawing style stage, and obviously I clearly don't know how a neck attaches to a head, but I was smart enough to figure out that the best way to draw the other eye, as well as hands, is to not draw them at all. So I want to pinpoint myself as 10, possibly 11 for this drawing. I must say I had very reasonable expectations at such a young age because during this period of time where I drew the surrounding characters in Kaida's life or area on the map, all of the 18 to 20-year-olds, their jobs are waitressing, cleaning, or being pirates, which can confirm I was a waitress at 19, and I mean, I was a pirate in a sense. Now, as for the lore of the ring on her thumb, it's on her thumb because it's too big for her fingers, right? And the other clue I have to her backstory and lore is that she vehemently dislikes another character whose name is Elaine. Elaine is an elderly woman who owns a competitive restaurant quaintly called the Tea House. Now, I have a few theories. The smallest brain theory is that these two are simply at odds because of business competition, but that doesn't really help explain the ring. So, my next theory is that Kaida married Elaine's grandson, whisking him away with the tales of pirating. Kaida and Elaine's grandson got into a horrible shipwreck, and Kaida was the only one to survive, and gave up pirating to pursue her husband's dream of restoring the old lighthouse and opening a restaurant. Elaine blames Kaida for her son's demise, and believes Kaida is constantly squandering the wealth her late husband has left for her. My last and most complicated theory. Elaine, as a young woman, fell in love with a man and had a child out of wedlock at a very young age. Out of money and out of luck, she sold the child and some of her jewelry, including a ring taken from the man who left her, to push herself out from the streets. She grew her wealth and renown, never to turn back to such dismal origins again, opening the prestigious tea house for high society and the wealthy. However, her past would easily come to haunt her as nearly 40 years later, a pirate by the name of Cyclone would show up on her doorstep, slandering her name and her business, exposing himself as a son who was sold so many years ago, holding much of the jewelry he was sold with and a birth certificate as proof. He too had had a daughter and demanded that Elaine pay back the life that he should have had. Elaine, many years hardened and absolutely enraged by his audacity, refused to acknowledge the relationship at all. Cyclone would raise Kaida on his own, doing his best to maintain his Robin Hood of the Ocean act, as well as to provide as whole of a life as he could for his daughter, even taking in another young orphan girl to be her sister. Kaida would eventually leave life at the sea, while her sister and father would continue to be pirates. She would restore the lighthouse for those on the sea and also strive to build a place where all would feel welcome. As a gift, her father gave her the jewelry he was sold with to help her start the restaurant, all of which she sold except for a particular large ring. Lastly, in scathing retaliation to her grandmother's abandonment of her father, Kaida named the lighthouse The Rumor Hath It, as a mockery of the posh lifestyle and gossipy nature seen at the tea house, and as a constant reminder of the rumor Elaine had tried to bury. But of course, this is all up to speculation. I think they all align in one way or another to what Kaida's actual backstory as thought up by little me might have been, but of course I didn't write anything down, and I have the memory of a goldfish. If any of you are wondering how my Halloween went and whether or not I had enough candy for trick-or-treaters this year, the answer is yes and no, because unfortunately we found out on Monday that the sickness, you know the one, has been going around my husband's place of work and unfortunately has taken out quite a number of people. He went to urgent care in the middle of the day to get a rapid test done, but we hadn't gotten the results back by the time the local trick-or-treating started. We didn't want to risk getting every little toddler sick in town, so we opted out of handing out the candy. So, I mean, we still have candy, but I guess I'll never know if it was enough or not. If you're curious, the initial test did come back negative, however his symptoms were getting worse, so we got another test and that one came back positive. And he's been working from home, which unfortunately means me, who has asthma and historically a not so hot immune system, am also rapidly going downhill. In fact, I am currently succumbing to the plague, but I'm taking my vitamins, drinking a lot of water, and doing the sleep, so here goes nothing. So if any of y'all want candy once we're all better, we have so much and we cannot possibly eat it all ourselves. It's been a bit since I've drawn hair and not enjoyed it, but the feeling is back, which is not fair because I was working very hard to take care of a lot of things in this period of time. So, like, come on, you could at least bestow me with a zest to draw hair, but alas, no, which is why I stopped working on the hair and work on the silky headscarf instead, which I really love how it turned out. It balances out the dark colors in her skirt very nicely, giving a piece that is quite bottom heavy in terms of color a little more of a unified look. This leather belt things over the corset gave me a lot of trouble. I started them with very different colors, one light and one dark, except when I added the lighting and shading, they came out to be a lot closer in color than I wanted, because I wasn't doing a good job of paying attention to the piece as a whole instead of just each individual item in the outfit. So you see me start to refine the look of the belt, and to be honest, I'm not super pleased with how the piece came out. It sort of clashed with the overall outfit, but I didn't have the energy to push and pull that area of the piece for longer. And if you're wondering where the other belt goes and why it doesn't sit in an X shape over her hips and not a Y shape, no, you didn't see anything and it makes perfect sense. Yeah. Instead of a tight lace-up corset, I give her these buttons, and I do imagine this leather piece offers support and a little bit of structure, but I don't imagine it's as tight-fitting as a normal corset with stiff boning would be. And Kaida strikes me as someone who probably values comfort and relatively high freedom of motion, having grown up at sea. Also, back to Halloween and stuff. Don't get me wrong, I had a great time. I'm an introvert, so staying in and not seeing anyone and just chilling in my pajamas was a very enjoyable way to spend Halloween. We played some video games, I trick-or-treated on my Animal Crossing villagers, and I think we watched a movie, but like I said, I have the memory of a goldfish. We have been watching more movies lately since we're getting sick. We are not necessarily getting tired sooner, but we're running out of energy and getting in bed sooner. And we've taken advantage of this lack of energy to watch some, I wouldn't say that they're all good movies, but they're either movies that either of us loved as kids and wanted to share with the other, or movies and TV shows that we just hadn't gotten the chance to come around to. It's a pretty random assortment of movies and TV shows, but I'm having a great time. And if you have a movie or anime recommendation, or if anyone has thoughts on Andor, because yeah, I haven't watched that yet, I would love to hear what you think. Here's where I start working on the dreadful sleeve that I spent just way too long on. The other sleeve turned out quite nicely, but this sleeve is just disrespectful and awful, and I refuse to use more brain cells on it to figure out the shading and the way the fabric hangs. And see, I got so frustrated working on a sleeve that I went to go work on the eye. And you know it's bad when I prefer to work on an eye instead of working on a shading draped fabric. But no, yeah, these eyes turned out quite lovely. They're nothing fancy, but I think the dark brown eyes very much suit her. I do think Cyclone, the pirate who is her dad, according to the newly thought of lore, I do think he has green eyes, but perhaps the brown eyes come from her mother or possibly her grandmother Elaine. I decide that it's time to buckle down and actually get to work on the hair, and I think at this point too I had taken a break. It's either the next day or like later the same day, but working on the hair this time around was significantly more enjoyable. Here I work on her lips, which I think I'm pretty inconsistent with how I do lips, but also I take a lot of my inspiration for drawing lips from Alicja Naj, a Polish artist on Instagram, and I think she might have a TikTok. Instagram I think is her most popular platform, but she does release YouTube videos from time to time. At least on her Instagram, she does a lot of really quick tutorials that are pretty easy to follow, and even if art tutorials from artists feel like draw a circle, then draw lines, add a little shading, and then boom, masterpiece. There's a lot to be said from learning the basics of how an artist you enjoy sets up their work. Now for the best part, the sashes or skirt. As much as I disliked working on the draping of the sleeve, nothing soothes my soul like draping large pieces of fabric for scarves, blankets, and skirts. So this whole part is just me having a very enjoyable time. I do eventually realize that working from the bottommost layer upward is the best strategy, and behold, I actually employ that strategy. Never mind that I haven't worked on her boots yet, but whatever. Also, I really love the final color scheme of the overall design. I think having this golden portion of the skirt at the bottom balances with her brightly colored hair. I also really like that the whole outfit is vibrant but not overwhelming or anything. On top of that, of all the redraws that I've done for this particular series, I feel like this one definitely is the closest thing to being the most similar to the original color scheme and overall attitude. It feels like a much more direct glow up more than being heavy on the redesign, which I think Little Me would be proud to have made a character design that still holds up, and there's no way that she wouldn't have liked this redesign. That being said, I do think if I had a little more patience for these tassels, that would have been great, but unfortunately I did not. Tassels are like hair, and it took me directly out of my enjoyable fabric draping straight into drawing little strands, and the result is somewhat disappointing, but let's just pretend it's fine. No worries, not a problem at all. Here I go to the boots, which I think are super stylish. They were supposed to be knee, maybe thigh high, and they have like the top that folds over, you know, as all good pirate boots do, but you can't see the part that folds over. So that's just a fun little tidbit that's just a secret for me and you. Now for the last few details, I work on getting her hands to look less implied and a little more detailed. I did think about giving her more piercings and painting her nails, but I decided against piercings because honestly I give a lot of my characters piercings because I just think it looks neat. As for nails, it seemed impractical for somebody who works with her hands a lot to have perfect flawless nails all the time. I mean, kudos to all y'all girls who do it, but I tried growing my nails long for the Ren Fair and I was doing so well, but then like 3 days before the main event, one of my nails broke and that was the end of that dream. With that, here's Kaida in all her glory. I do think the tassels and sleeves could have used a more patient hand, and there are a few small details I think I could have worked on, but I'm genuinely very happy with how she turned out. I think the colors and a lot of the style choices very much reflect the original design, and she's got spunk and attitude, and she's hot, so my serotonin levels are just off the chart. Alrighty, so that's all I have for today. Thank you all so much for watching and subscribing. You're all amazing, and I appreciate you all very, very much. I hope you enjoyed my video, and as for me, I'm probably going to make some tea and take a nice long nap because I am sickly and exhausted. Hopefully soon I'll be in much better working order. I'll do my best to recover and take care of myself, but historically, I'm quite bad at that. Anyways, see you next week where I will be fully recovered. Hopefully. Who knows? Not me.